What's up, everybody? We are live with the 6th episode of Worker to Worker, a very special episode for those of you who've been following along. This show, or this podcast, or whatever you want to call it, is a conversation between rank and file members of unions across state lines, local lines, and company lines. But today we're doing it a little different. Today I've got my good buddy with me here today, Jake from Local 8 UFCW, which is my local, our local. So we're talking about the same local today, union experience, and we're going to go through a little bit of history about how we met each other and what we've been working on. My name's Eric, again from UFCW Local 8. I work for Albertsons Safeway up here in Northern California, and this is Jake. Jake, why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
All right, my name's Jacob, and I cut meat with Bel Air here in Sacramento, California. UFCW Local 8, rank and file.
What's up, dude? And he's down in Sacramento, so for context, Jake and I are 2.5 hours apart from each other. I'm up in Redding, so like he said, he works for Bel Air, a Rayleigh's company, and I work for Safeway and Albertsons company. So different companies, and definitely spread across geographical region that, for us to have met each other and to know each other and to be working together, obviously not something that's very easy to do, not something that's very easy to have happen. And there's some history behind that. Jake and I met a little bit, I think in November, when we first met, and we kind of wanted to talk to and share with the experience that we had as UFCW Local 8 rank and file members that led to us meeting each other and starting to work together. And the idea is that we know that there are a lot of locals out there, UFCW locals and union locals, quite honestly, going through a lot of similar things that we experience here in UFCW Local 8. So these conversations, we think, have a lot of value for members out there who think that A, they don't have any agency in their union, B, they don't have a voice in their union or a way to have an opinion, and C, that they're alone in that fight and they're alone in feeling that way. And so we wanted to kind of have this conversation to shine some light on some of those things that we have in common with everybody out there, and some of the stuff that we've been doing to kind of try to overcome that. So with that, I think that I want to throw it over to Jake, because his story and his jump into this search for a different model or a different way to participate in our union started before mine. And Jake, why don't you kind of tell people what got you interested in learning more about the way that your UFCW local operates?
Sure. So I would say probably 2020, maybe early 2021. The link on the website for the stewardship, I clicked on that, and anyways, long story short, my union rep contacted me, and that seemed to go over pretty well. As far as I had a little bit of a history in this. We had a strike back in 2012, 2013, which I participated in. And that was it was a separate company. I was working, and on my off time I would go participate in the strike, and that rang some bells with my union rep. But then after, it was pretty quick, I realized that there was no direction as a shop steward in the store. So it got to the point where I was just trying to get people to start talking. We had a very unengaged membership at my store. Half the people didn't know they were in a union. The only union presence in the store was a file box that was covered up under rain jackets. And so I figured that's the best thing I could do at this point is just make people aware. Like my friend Oliver that I worked with, he's the one that he sort of came on board with the idea of having a place for people to talk, almost like a support group for clerks and people in the business. And so we started doing that, started going to coffee shops, started meeting up, and people would sort of come and go. I have another buddy, Alex, he was hanging around, and what we saw a lot of when there was somebody actually to talk to, or somebody put themselves out there, people started coming in with the problems ranging from alcoholism and addiction to just your general questions about your contracts. Yeah, once you started talking to people, I realized this place was full of problems and full of issues. And I don't know, I just brought on myself to have some kind of direction, or bring some kind of direction to all this chaos. And then Oliver came up with the idea, like I said, and it was his idea to call it At What Cost, which is a pretty clever name.
I love it.
Yeah.
We'll get into it a little bit. Keep going on this, and I just kind of want to throw out for context, like this idea of like a support group for retail workers. If you think about the timing of all of this, would not be shocking to those of you who worked through COVID. That was an extremely stressful time. Think what you want about COVID itself. If you were working through that time period, especially in the retail industry, in the grocery stores, you remember not knowing if you were going to die. You remember like doing weird shit, like taking your clothes off in your garage before you came into your house because you weren't sure if you were going to get your family sick. There were people that took it to different extremes and didn't make contact with their families throughout the entire time. Stayed in different rooms, whatever they could do to try to keep themselves safe. I'm sure every grocery worker out there knows at least one person that was killed from COVID or COVID-related complications. I have a story about a very healthy coworker, wrestling coach, who ended up in ICU for multiple months. Luckily, he made it out okay, but that was getting spit on by customers and not knowing if that was going to get you sick, having to deal with plexiglass and 6-foot strings and arrows on the aisles telling people which way to walk, and little footprints all over the store telling people how to stay 6 feet away from each other, and getting in arguments with customers who disagreed or agreed with mask policies and wanted to fight each other in the grocery store over it and put it on YouTube or record it for their TikTok. I had people wearing masks filming me and screaming at me for trying to tell another customer that they had to have a mask on in the store. And it just, like, the idea that you guys put together this support group, it was something that we needed more access to in terms of resources provided for it. Not only did we as UFCW make it rank and file members, and at the time I was a salaried manager, but not only did the rank and file UFCW not win any serious contract gains during that time, they had to go through some like awful shit, and the support structure was there in spirit but wasn't there in reality as far as I experienced in the store for management or for rank and file members. But that what you guys did in coming together and providing that spot, and then shout out to Oliver for the name At What Cost. I absolutely love it. That speaks to the missing solidarity in our union. That speaks to not having a way to connect like that. And so shout out to you guys for taking the first steps and like making that happen. How did that group in that process get connected with or get introduced to the essential workers for democracy?
So in my quest to learn what the hell a shop steward does in the UFCW, or in the local aid anyway, I ended up reaching out to IWW. I took it was a class with them, and it's your basic standard labor notes class. They have all the printouts from that one book, the Secrets to a Successful
Organizer. Yeah, the Bible of organizing.
Yeah, this is the beginning of the saturation, of all that information.
Your first time laying eyes on the bullseye. The first time you ever saw the bullseye.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it was actually a pretty good event. It must have been December 2022, I believe. And anyways, and so I took this class. It was like I want to say it was a 3-day class or something like that. And I was sort of discouraged because everything that they were talking about at the time didn't make any sense, like to what I was going through at work, what I was trying to accomplish or what I thought I was trying to accomplish. And then when I was leaving, actually, the guy that was running the class, because he knew I was with the UFCW, he's the one that brought up. I think back then, I think it was just called UFCW Reform.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was going to call it essential workers at that point. So I got the website or the phone number, one of the two, or just a name. And then I think it was probably a couple weeks or maybe a couple months until I decided to reach out. And that's when I reached out and talked to Enrique and told him what we were doing with this, at what cost. And he sort of told us what he was doing and what they were doing with essential workers. They sort of brought us in a little bit slowly because, we were having problems getting people that were interested. I don't know. Anyways, so that's how I met essential workers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So just for everybody out there that is the Essential Workers for Democracy is what ended up pulling our two groups together. So what was going on down in Sacramento with that support group and trying to come together, trying to build that worker solidarity, trying to offer each other a space to kind of share in their collective struggle. That's something that's missing in a lot of unions out there. I personally think that was probably a role that used to be filled by the union hall. Having a lot of local union halls in cities and towns where the unions operate gives union members a collective space to gather and to help share those struggles when we're all going through stuff at work, including things with like alcohol and drug addiction. Sometimes it's very isolating and you feel like you're alone. Being able to have a safe space where you're with your brothers and sisters, your family, it's another piece of the union that's makes it extremely powerful, is that when you start to view each other in that mindset as siblings and brothers and sisters, it unlocks this safety and support that allows for mistakes to happen, for imperfections to be talked about and to be supported through, like things like drug addiction, alcohol addiction. Some members out there, a lot of members out there, to be honest, have been saved by those contract clauses that allow for access to rehabilitation through our union. So those resources do exist, but that's in a service model. That's an end of the rainbow request that you have to make in order to receive that service. And a lot of people don't. And a lot of people that struggle with addiction, the biggest hurdle they have to getting better is admitting that it's even existing, right? So, not being able to do that is the barrier to getting into any type of help, and not having a safe space to, be called out by your brothers and sisters, like, hey, I think you might have a problem, bro, or, it seems like you might be slipping, like, what's going on? Is there anything I can help you with? Like, that saves a lot of lives, and so shout out to you guys for starting on that path. And with the union stewardship, I mean, you are not saying anything that no shop steward out there doesn't already know. If you're in Local 8 and you're a shop steward,
you're on
good
your own.
luck.
Yeah.
Good
like
luck.
The Wild West. Then most shop stewards in Local 8 that I know, they don't know. I mean, it's not their fault, but they don't know what the fuck is going on. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't know what they're supposed to do. And it's, the majority of them just look at it as a stepping stone to get out of the grocery store and get a staff job at some point.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It's held in front of people a lot,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Cool. Like, this is your ticket, which, checks out in my experience, to be honest with you, because when I stepped down from management and joined Safeway store rank and file at 1954 in Reading, there was no shop steward there. So I called my rep and I was like, yo, there's no shop steward here. I'll do it. And he's like, all right, cool. You're the shop steward. That was it. Like via phone call. And then same thing. I'm like, all right, what does that mean? So I started Googling it. What does it mean to be a shop steward? I got a book called No Shortcuts by Jay McAlevey and started reading that. And that book, this was summer of last year. That book, shined a lot of light on problems that are going on in UFCW Local 8, and not just UFCW Local 8. This is, you have to understand, for me, I'm 6 months into rank and file unionism, right? Like my prior experience with the union, I was a courtesy clerk for 9 months before I stepped into management. So I didn't even finish paying my initiation fees. When my rep came to me after I became a manager, he told me that I still owed the union like $300. And I just laughed. I'm like, I'm not paying you that. I'm never coming back to your shitty union. And look at me now. Here I am. But what the thing that triggered me the most was hearing that in Jane McAlevey's book, No Shortcuts. Highly recommend everybody pick it up and read it if you're interested in this type of stuff. Pick up any book and read it. Honestly, if you want a piece of advice from me, read more books. But negotiations, very clearly in that book, she says, if you as a rank and file member are not allowed in the room where your negotiations are happening, you have a 3-party system. You are not your union, meaning they consider themselves a separate entity from you, and those 2 entities are negotiating in their best interest behind closed doors. That was the first thing I was like, oh shit, there's something wrong. So I went to my rep and I said, hey man, I read this. I think there's something wrong. Members aren't allowed to bargain in Local 8. And he said to me at the time, oh no, there is members in there. They're just like, they're picked, but there's like a few members in there. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. How do you get on that list? Like, I want to be on that list. Okay, let me go find out. So he leaves, comes back to me a couple weeks later, and tells me, yeah, there's actually no members. There's no bargaining, like member bargaining committee, and you need to stop rocking the boat. And I said, and he said that. And I was like, dude, I'm not trying to rock the boat. I just like read a book. And with this new knowledge I have, I think there might be some issues. And he just kind of brushed it off. I continued to read the book. I continued to kind of fall into this belief that something was seriously wrong, that we had a business union. We had what is called a sinecure local, which exists purely to extract funds and funnel them up to the international. They do not want to participate in politics. They do not want to participate in unionism. They don't want to participate in member democracy. They're just an engine for extracting wealth out of working people and pumping it up to the international to fund their political movements and their large-scale activities. So I brought that to my union rep's attention, and I said, hey, dude, this is very obvious, because at that point, I believe that the Labor Day picnic had come and gone, and we had gone there, a few people from my store, to go participate, because as a manager in our town, I always worked with the Western Labor Council, which includes the UFCW, to supply all of the food for this picnic that takes place at the local park every year. Big picnic for the whole community. We provide all the meat, all the soda, all the bread, all the condiments, everything. Every year. And as a manager, I've always orchestrated that, like, hundreds and hundreds of handmade like hamburger patties from our meat department just got to come get picked up this day for this picnic. I actually thought it was a UFCW picnic the entire time, my entire career, all 15 years. I was like, dude, that's badass. You guys have this picnic. Members would go to it on their lunch breaks that day and stuff, come back with burgers. I'm like, oh, this is badass. So this last year, I was like, oh, dude, we're going. Like, let's go. We go. Dude, there's no UFCW presence there. Every other union has their big old tents out. They've got union members out there with pamphlets, the nurses union, teachers union, the SEIU, the Teamsters, the plumbers and pipe fitters, the electrical workers. I saw everybody out there. My rep was embarrassingly behind the grill cooking because he had to be there. He left as soon as he could, and there was no UFCW representation there. And I was pissed, dude. I was like, this is our fucking picnic, dude. Like, this is our food, bro. Like, this is basically our event. Why aren't we shouting from the rooftops that, like, yo, come do this picnic? And he said, because he didn't, I don't know who, doesn't agree with the politics there.
The politics of a picnic?
Yes, dude. And I'm like, I swear to God, dude. And I was like, I was like trying to think in my mind, and I was like, yeah, dude, I remember there was like, I think the teachers union had like a Harris Walls like little like placard, you know, like on their thing, but it wasn't like that, you know, it wasn't like a anti-Trump picnic or anything. It was a Labor Day picnic, dude. There was bands playing, there was kids getting their faces painted, like it wasn't a political rally like at all. And so, dude, I was offended by that, dude. So me and Tony, shout out brother Tony, who's been in our side of this equation since the beginning, we started kind of raising the alarm and saying, hey, we don't have anywhere to meet up. We don't have meetings. We don't have we don't have a local union hall, basically, was what we were asking for. We haven't had any local meetings in as long as any of us have been around, 15 plus years. We kind of want to change that. And the response from our rep and the local was, tough luck, dude. There's no meetings is what they told us. We don't have meetings. There haven't been meetings in over a decade. And so we made the Discord server and we called it the unofficial Local 8 Union Hall. And we made some shirts. Oh, I got my At What Cost shirt on. You're a loser not wearing yours. Look at me. Woo.
Hey, my summer shirt, man.
But we made some gray T-shirts that just like they had a state of California with the number 8 in it. It said unofficial Local 8 Union Hall. Just shirts, because we were like, dude, that's the other thing we don't have in our local. Any way to like represent our union. Like we have no way to purchase with our own money ways to show pride in our union through our local. So we made those shirts and we started meeting up on Discord, and we just created it like a casual hangout basically to start chatting about union stuff. And we asked about contracts coming up. And this was in the summertime. And my rep said, you don't talk about those right now. We talk about that when it's time to talk about that. And I was like, what? How are we supposed to know when that is? And he goes, dude, when we tell you, then it's time. We need to start talking now. Nobody even knows what their current contract is, yet alone the next contract. That's not how it works. How do you know what everybody wants on the contract then? Oh, we send out a survey. So I go asking around, have you ever taken this survey? Because again, I'm a manager, right? So I'm just traveling around all my local stores and I'm saying, hey, I've never been through a contract as a rank and file member. What's this? When do you get to tell them what you want? Nobody I had ever talked to had ever shared their opinion through it. Nobody had a recollection of taking any type of survey saying what they wanted on the contract. And we're in the same local. You've been working in the same environment that I've been working in. Are the rank and file members in Sacramento more participatory and more aware of the contract surveys that come out when it's contract time?
So I think on the last contract cycle, I remember when the surveys started coming around, and that was like a brand new steward at the time. And so I think, okay, the best thing I could do at the moment is go through and make sure everybody I work with at my store or at my shop fills out this survey. I remember doing that, but nobody, it was one of those things. You get a text message. I think at the time you get a text message to come through, and then if you don't look at it, it just you don't fill out the survey. You don't see the survey, and that's what was happening. So I started re-forwarding the text message out to everybody to try to. At the time, because like I sort of fell into that trap, thinking, maybe my future is going to be on staff with UFCW 8, and I was thinking, okay, well maybe if I get like 100%. Yeah, sort of like a kiss-ass move. If I get 100% participation in this, maybe they'll notice. But this was before I knew better, and we're talking about like wake-up moments. Like when I first, when I went out to lunch with my rep and her boss when I became a steward, and this was like late 2020, early 2021, right after the George Floyd protest and everything. So we're eating lunch. And I'm thinking I'm talking maybe not people that are radical, but at least people that are sort of empathetic to what's been going on, and I'm so I'm talking shit about the police and, and just in general. And both these people I'm with, like one of them's like, most of my family are in the police force, and then the other person's like, I went to school to be a cop. I was like, inside, I sort of knew at that point in the back of my head, I was like, I think I'm going the wrong direction with this whole thing. but, but to get back, I think we're just about to talk about, as far as merging these two. Another story I remember is like, so through essential workers, I think when we sort of hit a point, I think we got like 3 people to sit in on a meeting with essential workers, and they're okay, you guys got to meet these guys from Reading. And Enrique was saying, you have like 30 people, like all that's down, and like I was like, wow, like this guy, and they had like a little infrastructure set up with the Discord server, like you had it sounded like you had all the things that were missing, in Sacramento. And then see, when was that? Yeah, so we connected last year. Anyways, that's how I remember coming together, was through Enrique and through I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah. No, you're good, because that is exactly what happened. I actually I didn't know how about you guys. Like, I didn't know how Enrique had let you guys know about us, but we were doing all that. We were building up. It was just trying to connect, right? It was just trying to get people paying attention, because that's the nobody seemed to care. Nobody knew. Everybody was pissed off. Everybody wanted to blame our rep Mike. Everybody wanted to put him down. The more that I realized, like working with him directly, that he's not a decision maker. Like, none of the reps in these locals have any power or any autonomy or any agency. They don't even move without calling their bosses at all. So once I realized that the problem wasn't my local rep. In fact, I didn't even realize, it took me a lot of like exploring to find out that, like, oh, this is a structural problem at the international level, and there's a few locals that have figured it out, because that information is not made available to us. That's not easy for us to find at all. Nothing is easy for us to find. If you're in a local that doesn't want you to know information, good luck. Like, it's on your own. It's out there. Like, there's legal reports, like the LM2 that they have to file, the bylaws that they have to file at the same Office of Labor Management, that same website. If that didn't exist, you wouldn't be able to get your bylaws unless you traveled to your local main office and demanded them in print, because they are. This is how you know you're in a bad spot. When they do the least amount legally required, that's probably not a good situation to be in, right? That's not a forward moving or forward thinking. So as I started to kind of realize that, I started reaching outside of Local 8, trying to find solutions. Like, okay, our union isn't going to help us here. We had started a internal contract survey. Basically, we just made our own survey, and it was very open-ended, asking people what they wanted on like an ideal contract, and started spreading that around. And that was getting like a lot of traction. Like, it was a lot of time. For the first time, people had been having a discussion about what they thought would be an improvement in their life and working conditions, which, if that's not happening in your local, if you're not having those conversations, like alarm bells, red alert, like you're not doing the thing. Like, that's the purpose of your collective bargaining, is to do that. So if you're not looking at each other and saying, hey, are you making enough to pay your bills? Because I'm not. You're not taking advantage of what you have in a union. If your local isn't helping you leverage that, that's a problem. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you might be in a situation similar to ours. Heads up. But one of the things I did in my journey to find answers was go to Reddit and start posting on UFCW subreddit. And the post that I put up there was like, is there something seriously wrong in the UFCW? Like, this Reddit seems to be very negative. It's not like, if there's not very many people hyped up on the UFCW, like in this Reddit, there's not very many people here. Like, do we have a situation where like we need to start looking into either how to fix it or how to move to a different union? Like, I was exploring options. Like, what I had seen was the UPS contract that the Teamsters had just gotten, and I was like, dude, that's That's amazing. That's $50 an hour topped out for drivers. That's a national contract that covers the Teamsters coast to coast. We're broken up into all these tiny contracts, and topped out, we're not making a living wage. Like, that's a problem. So I was starting to think about, like, well, how do you call the Teamsters and say, hey, we want to be Teamsters instead of UFCW? And, not calling for any action or calling for decertification or anything along those lines, but just asking people if that was even like, is that what we need to do? Is that where it's at? And Caitlin from the Essential Workers for Democracy replied to that post and said, basically, don't decertify, reform. You already have a local, you already have a union. It just needs to be fixed. Something's wrong. And that's when I started talking to the Essential Workers, and we started having calls, and they told me about a group down in Sacramento that had been meeting up called At What Cost. And I was like, oh, they have a name, dude. Oh, I remember going back into my store and like just going around like, dude, these guys have a name. Like, there's people out there doing the same thing we're trying to do, but they have a name. Like, they're fucking even more legit than us. Like, that was the vibe.
That's like all we had. All we had was the fucking name.
Yeah, but dude, it added this like air of legitimacy to it where I was like, dude, we look at our stupid name. We're the unofficial UFCW. Like, I was just trying to not get sued, like. And you guys had like a fucking cool ass name, dude. So I was like, oh, dude, this is awesome. Like, I can't. And Enrique he was kind of like teasing it for a while. Like, yeah, we'll set up a meeting. And like some time went by. I think I got to go over to Chicago for the Teamsters for a Democratic Union conference before we actually met. I think we ended up meeting in November, and I went, that was at like Halloween, like end of October. And we ended up meeting on a call, like a joint call in November. And do you remember that call? What was that call like for you?
I barely remember that call. I think I had just transferred to a different store, to the store I'm at now, and for whatever reason, the south side of town has horrible internet, and I was trying to get in on this call, and I was trying to ride the Wi-Fi at work and all this stuff. And the only thing I could really do, like, it was in the chat. I couldn't really talk, like, it was the connection was just horrible. But that was the first time I met you, and I remember thinking, because I remember at first, like talking with Enrique, and because I think I had like sort of like not giving up, but taking like sort of an extended break from all this. It wasn't really going anywhere, and I had some other things I had to deal with. And then whenever that was solved, whatever it was, when I came back to it, and I hit up Enrique, and he's one that he brought up you guys up there, and it was sort of like the same thing. I was like, I couldn't believe that there was. He said that he had a following of like 30 people at the time. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, I've been sweating, and I got like these 3 people that are sort of unreliable at the moment. Type of thing.
It's really
like,
hard.
It is. Yeah, it's difficult. And then I remember, I think he spoke at that, on that first call. I can't remember what it was. I think it must have been it was one of those instructions. They're all seems like they're all sort of the same. But it was, something was happening. It was one of these workshops. And that's another thing. I mean, like, I don't put myself out there like that. And I was like really impressed that you were. And I remember thinking, okay, I was like, if there's any kind of, I'm gonna go into this thinking, like all about cooperation and bringing this together instead of, because it did feel like a little threatening at first. I was like, man, this guy's really got his shit together. But I was like, nah, I think the best way to do this, if we're going to be preaching unionism, we need to, we got like minds here. We should actually try to bring this together. And I remember, I think whatever we discussed in the chat there. And then I remember, I think I was in San Francisco, and I think we actually had our first discussion about what was going on, and really sort of came together then.
Yeah, that's that for me. Like, and for people who like if you're watching all of these episodes, or if you listen to the Discord meeting, you're gonna hear my voice a lot. That's because I don't shut the fuck up. That's the
It's
problem.
a gift.
Is yes, I can't stop talking. I don't stop thinking about this, and so when I take the plug out, it just escapes out of my brain. And sometimes I talk too much, but this is an extremely decentralized movement. I think that Jake could attest to it, that the conversations that we have that are not like that are happening in the hall, like constantly, like in our Discord server, the decisions that are made like in the group, especially big decisions like merging our name, like taking on At What Cost as an official name, and you know, building like an official platform that we kind of all stand on and say that we want to move forward together on. Those types of things, like I speak a lot. I'm more than happy to stand in front of or be made to be the villain of like this movement. But that is in no way, shape, or form to speak to any type of ownership or single voice or single mind in At What Cost and what this group is. Because to Jake's point, if we are gonna do like true unionism, if we're gonna really like actually empower the rank and file, it's not finding the person that's going to replace your bad person. Like if you've got a bad local president, he needs to go, but he doesn't get replaced by a new king. What gets replaced is that entire organizational structure, and it gets replaced with something that returns the power back to the rank and file membership and takes it away from that like central body of leadership. So I tend to get wordy, and I have a lot of passionate thoughts and beliefs on this stuff. So sometimes I even get a little preachy in an attempt to try to convince people to believe or to agree with what I think. But that door is open, and in fact, I often, and I'll do it again right now. In the last meeting, I talked about it quite a bit, but all voices being involved is what's important. Not all voices agreeing with At What Cost. I happen to believe that the position that we take as a reform group in wanting to restore democracy to our union and power to our membership, I believe that that is the best way forward. But if everybody participated and disagreed, I would move in that direction. I would work in between those decision points to try to change people's minds. But I do believe fundamentally that democracy and voting and everybody being educated and informed and having a voice is the actual like best way forward. Even if you're going to self-inflict wounds, at least you did that to yourself. I feel that's a little bit different, and I think after you do that a few times, you probably learn from that and change your way. But to have the excuse that someone else keeps doing it to you takes a lot of responsibility off of yourself, and you know, you get to be a victim over and over and over again of a bad organizational model or bad leadership that you did nothing to change. And in a union, that's on you, because regardless of how bad of the situation is currently for you, you have legal protections and you have bylaws that offer paths to change that, even if the only path is to run for local office and make the change there, like we're kind of coming to the conclusion to in our situation as we continue to search for support from our local and they continue to refuse it. It becomes the only option, right? There was a lot of threats being thrown at us, like especially when we merged. I mean, a very powerful thing happened when our groups merged together, and this became something that was happening almost all over our local. And for those of you who've been keeping score, when Jake joined, we had 30 people, and through his efforts down in the Sacramento area, pulling in people from Food Max, Save Mart, Raley's, and everything we've been doing up here in the Reading area, our Discord server is now up to 133 people. So we've gained 100 people in that time, and we just keep growing. We now have social media pages. You run an Instagram page that it continues to grow. Facebook page is being ran by somebody else that's in the group. That continues to grow. We now have this YouTube channel where you're probably watching this video, and that continues to grow. So we, as rank and file union members are trying to reach the membership where they are so that they can have a way to participate in their local. And our local has chosen not to support us in that. And I guess I would throw the question to you, now that we are, one group, we've been going to meetings together, we've been continuing to grow together, we've been sharing information and ideas across companies and across city regions that members have never been connected in Local 8 like they are like this, like right now. Do you see that having any impact? Have you seen any impact in that in just the small time that we've been doing it?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, with if we want to go back and talk about staff, UFCW staff, I mean, whether they want to show it or not, and I'm not going to say that they're intimidated, but they're definitely notice what we're doing, and they see the crowd size grow every time they have a meeting. It started with nobody, yeah, and then I think we doubled it the second time, and then went from 5 to 10 to 15 or somewhere in that neighborhood. Like, so, this growth, I think it has to be obvious to them. I think, the way that, my rep is coming into the store more often, I'm sure is because of what we're doing here. I think, I think the writing's on the wall for him. I think the staff knows probably what's coming up, as far as they're looking at these other locals, that are actually fighting and that have membership participating, and we made it clear that's what we want. I mean, they're only going to fight for so long. I don't know. We'll see. As far as going forward, I mean, I think what we're doing is the right thing. I think we want to keep bringing. I'm sorry, I keep losing my train of thought.
No, I agree. I agree with everything you're saying. Moving forward, we want to keep bringing more people in. And I hope that's where we're going. We need, if you're listening out there and you're a member of Local 8, get in the Discord, get into one of these social media channels, comment on these videos, get active, get participating, contact your rep, let them know that you're involved and at what cost. Because they're in the stores more often. Shout out to everybody who's got a union board up in their store now for the first time in over a decade. Rayleigh's had union boards more consistently, but I've never in my life seen one in Safeway. And all the North stores up here in Reading and Anderson, Bernie, we all have a union board now where official union postings are up. So that's great to see. Take baby steps, right? We are getting contract updates within a couple days of the negotiation date. The Save Mart contract that went through at the beginning of this year, they were not getting consistent updates like that. They were not getting consistent text messages. I think that we have kind of forced them to be more communicative in the way that they are releasing their updates. At least they know that we're watching every day after the negotiations for our update to come out. And so shout out to everybody there for demanding more information. And then we've taken steps that, listen, like if there's people that tell me all the time, like a monthly update is going to come out from us tomorrow, and that goes out to right now 76 people who have signed out on our contact form. If you want to participate in that, just fill out our contact form and you'll get it in your email or text message. But we put out a monthly update that's recapping everything, and there's still people that tell me that they get more information from our monthly update than they do from the union. I will say you're missing if you're not getting the text messages and the emails from the union. Like you should sign up for those because they are coming out more frequently, and that is where we're getting our contract update information. Now, don't get me wrong, we take the next step and we go to Local 5 and we try to get information out of Local 648, and we're keeping track of what's going on with bargaining all across the West Coast right now. We're involved in what's going on with the contracts in Indiana. So we're more involved than our local is in terms of providing like robust updates. But at the very least, if they're going to give you something, let's like make sure we're taking it. That tells them that we want it. And when nobody's participating, they have a really good counter argument to us when it's like nobody cares. We put these out and nobody watches them. Nobody looks at them. Now, I will say, go look at their update, and you're not surprised why nobody looks at that boring shit. at least the one before that was like kind of cool. Like they used Chat GPT. It was like, oh, it's moving at a glacial pace. Like I was like, all right, let's go. Let's put some adjectives in here. Like I can envision that in my mind. Like you sound angry. Like I tried to find, it was funny. I was telling people my story. I was trying to find like a good glacier gif to like, put up a meme about how slow Safeway was moving. But if you search for glacier gifs, they're all like badass, like hyper destructive, fast moving glaciers. Like seriously. And you're like, oh, I can't put any of these up. That's not what's going on either side.
I think the one of the advantages that we've built here for ourselves is this crowdsourcing what we have on Discord. And if there's an issue, or if there's a question, X amount of people will jump on it, and we won't stop until we have it, like the piece of paper that has the writing on it. You know what I mean? The actual, like, this is it. It's not what somebody said it is. This is the rule that we're looking for. Or that's badass, because numerous times people have brought up, like when the Save Mart tentative agreement was coming out, we were hearing rumors about it all over the place until somebody took pictures of it because they got it in their mailbox, had posted it for us to see. That's happened numerous times with conversations about wage tables, vacation payouts, different contract situations. People will be talking back and forth about it, and then boom, someone throws up a picture of the page in the contract. And that's huge. That's like, our union wants us all to be experts. And when we all get in the same room, you realize like, oh dude, this is how it's supposed to be, right? Like that's what I feel when I see those conversations pop up. I'm like, dude, this is how we get to the truth. Bro, we're getting questions answered that our reps can't answer, or they can't answer right away, right? I'll get back to you, which they never do. But like this, having access to like the truth, whether it's being able to break down the bylaws so they're understandable, or like I said, and getting some of these questions answered, or defeating some of these rumors, the clarification is amazing. I think that's an accomplishment that we sort of overlook, but that we should really take credit for, because we don't get that from the union. We don't get it from our employers. I mean, getting a straight answer from staff is the hardest thing in the world to get, unless they're just saying no. We get the no one.
shout out to John Heisey for his hard nose. We love it.
Oh yeah, finally a straight answer.
Yeah, no, shout out to everybody in At What Cost. Like that's having 130 members in a Discord server. Now I will challenge those of you out there listening to this, and I think this is a good spot to kind of wrap it up. We're gonna have to do a part 2 for sure, but I try to keep these at 30 minutes so that people don't get bored or whatever. But we're at 47, so again, sorry, I'm talky, and especially about this because this is like the stuff that we've been working on. Like, bro, like you calling that out right there is something that probably people take for granted. But every time a question gets thrown up in that chat, in that Discord server, in the hall, you're right. People are jumping all over it trying to get an answer. And until we get the answer, we're throwing it back and forth and disagreeing with each other sometimes about what some people's opinions are, and landing on what I feel is the closest we've ever gotten to the truth in our local. And that's a huge positive for us.
100, yeah.
Yeah. All right, dude. So that's kind of how At What Cost got to where it's at right now. That's what we've got going on in our local. I bet there's a lot of locals out there that are very similar to ours. And what you just heard was kind of how two people took control of their destinies and decided that they were either going to be buried with concrete shoes on, or we're going to find a way to fix their local. And we are not at the concrete shoes part yet, and we have started to make changes that have had a positive effect on the membership, the rank and file membership of our local. And unfortunately our local leadership seems to view that as a negative, but that's just for now. Do you have anything you want to close out with? Anything you want to say to the people out there before we wrap this up?
Be active. Try to figure out something that you care about with this union, because everybody likes to complain, but there's not too many people that are actually doing anything. So and any little thing helps, any little thing matters. Just like I said, when I first started as a steward, just getting people aware that they're in a union is a giant victory. Just having people somewhat aware. So do something.
Get out there, be active. We talk about it all the time. For those of you that made it this far, one way to be active is to share this link. A way to be active is to subscribe to the channel. If you're not texting this video to 10 of your coworkers, who can then text it to 10 of their coworkers, that's one of the easiest things you can do. And I will say that when this started, when we had 30 members in that Discord server, when Jake popped in from Sacramento, it was at just the right time, because every time it starts to feel impossible, something happens that makes you realize, like, oh no, it's not impossible, it's actually happening. It just doesn't happen as instantly as we're used to because of things like TikTok. But if you look at where we're at now versus where this thing started, if you take 6 months from now at where it can be, if everybody just takes a step forward together, I don't think that there's anything that's stopping us from achieving our goal, which is a local union that represents its membership and has a fighting spirit when it comes to delivering improvements to working conditions and our lives. And that's not a that's not a radical thing to ask for from your union, I don't think. I think that's pretty brick and mortar, bread and butter, foundational ask from your union. And we can go from the build on that too. And I want a banner at my picnic next time, buddy. Man. All right. That's been another episode of Worker to Worker. My name's Eric. This is Jake. We're two UFCW Local 8 members working on reform right here inside of Local 8 with our group At What Cost. This is the At What Cost YouTube channel. All the content you see coming out of here is from our group At What Cost. We are proud to be connected to the Essential Workers for Democracy, which is helping UFCW reform happen all across this country with this goal of union empowerment, union democracy, member engagement, rank and file members involved in every step of the way, first day strike pay, coordinated bargaining. You know the drill. Look them up, ew4d.org, and please get plugged into what we've got going on here at What Cost. Let your coworkers know that there's only one thing stopping change here in Local 8, and that is you. Thank you to everybody that's come so far, and we will see you next time. From all of us here at What Cost, bye.
Cheers.